All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome. It is Wild Speculation Friday, but I'm not so sure. Okay, so it is speculation. Don't get me wrong. I own it. Y'all know that I do. Um, However, let me just say this. There, at this point, I think I'm to the point where I wonder who is speculating more. It is the speculation greater on the side of the pro investigation, pro prosecution, pro state, or is the speculation greater on the pro innocent, pro Kohberger, pro or anti cop sentiment? Like, which side is engaging in more wild speculation? Because make no mistake about it, no matter what side you're on this thing, you are being required to speculate. And the reason that you're being required to speculate is because we have a serious gag order in place. And I've said, I think one of the unintended consequences of the gag order is it opens the door is wide open to individual commentators, social media influencers, or YouTube creators, or whatever we want to call independent journalists. It has opened the door wide for people to just say things, to just make things up and say them, and not be required to have at least some reference to say, hey, yeah, I'm engaging in speculation, but it's based on this particular fact, or this comment made by this particular attorney or cop, officer or whatever. So, Peter Tragos, when he was on the Megyn Kelly show, he said it, not exactly in those words, but it was very similar. And it was that idea that when there's a gag order, it does seem to go hand in hand with wild speculation. And for unscrupulous people to just make things up, just kind of fly by the seat of their pants, and whoever makes up the most outrageous story gets the most attention and the most money, should I say. And so that, it's a real thing. I feel safe with this. So what I'm going to talk about, hey, Bebop, what I'm going to talk about is, yes, it is speculation, but anyone talking about this case is speculating, unless it is that group of creators who is using the various documents that have been filed, the public access documents, and they're kind of going through and debating or contrasting comments, no, not comments, statements that are recorded in these official court documents. And they're kind of trying to work through the subtleties of, like the timeline issues that are there. And I'm going to do that today. And I don't know that I've heard anybody else with this idea. So I hope that you'll stay and kind of hear me out through this deal. And I am, I've got my notebook filled. I have exact times from the various documents, arrest affidavit and search warrants and court documents and whatnot. And I'm just going to kind of float a couple of different ideas out there that might account for some of the anomalies and discrepancies that make it really hard. I'm with you. I agree. Makes it very, very hard to buy into this 16-minute window of time. The reality is, I think it's safe to say that if you have a You have a Navy SEAL, a person who has been trained, special forces, basically trained assassins. Not all Navy SEALs are assassins, but you know what I mean. That person would be able to get in the lives of 4 young people, all strong, all healthy, except for Maddie, who was very intoxicated, but able to go in, do away with these 4 children's lives, get cleaned up, and get back out without trailing a single drop of blood, and get all that done in 16 minutes. They might, a trained assassin might, a special forces person might, but very difficult to believe that a neophyte killer would have that ability. It is very hard. Now, just for discussion purposes, I do think it could have been done if the primary focus was on one of the girls and nobody else was knew what was happening during that period of time. And then as the killer begins to try to escape the scene, then it's survival, and he's just trying to kill people as he encounters them to get out the door. So maybe there was a little more time spent with Maddie, who I think was the primary. Maybe it was a little bit more time. And then as he encountered each successive person, I think he could have, as a matter of self-defense, I don't mean that's a defense. I'm talking about as he encounters that moment where he's being confronted, he's trying to survive and get out the door. And so it was very quick, type of, we don't know the nature of the individual injuries. We don't know if there were very quick cuts to the neck, which would have ended the fight very quickly, or if there was an awful lot. And I think with Xana, this is very interesting. With Xana, the characterization for Xana is that she fought like hell, quote unquote, which would imply, no, it wasn't quick. And they were both, and it's interesting that she was the only one that was supposedly awake at 4:12. And then this DoorDash order is delivered around 4:04. So there are some real standouts, and I'm going to account for those. But then there's some things that I'm going to say, maybe we're looking at this all wrong. We may be misinterpreting the information that is provided. And so that is kind of where I'm going to start. Okay. Hey, Luby Lou, welcome. Moonlight View. How are you doing? Welcome to you. I lost everybody. There y'all are. Marie Morris, thank you for the thumbs up. I certainly appreciate it more than you know. Hey, Big Ups. It is Wild Speculation Friday. And Skitty Nona, welcome to you. And let's see, Hybrid Pisces, welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, things have gotten crazy. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. All right. So just kind of giving a nod to Hybrid Pisces because things are weird in some communities on YouTube. All right. Julie B, welcome. Good to see you. Hey, Steffi. Good to see you. Okay. So we are going to start with, I think if I remember, psychological considerations of Bryan Kohberger as killer. And that's where I'm going to kind of begin this conversation and be as testament to why I believe he could be the guy. I know you guys don't like that 16-minute time frame, but I think he's the guy. So one of the things that I start out with, we consider oppositional, I am a licensed psychologist. I do not work as a forensic psychologist in this world today, although I've definitely had internship experiences and practicum experiences doing evaluations for court and things like that. I don't want to go into my history and background, but I don't play. I am a licensed psychologist in real life. I do work a full-time job, but I don't play a psychologist on YouTube. I like to talk about true crime. Okay, so I don't often kind of intertwine my professional life with what I do on YouTube, because YouTube's like a hobby for me. But in today's conversation, I want to acknowledge that there are some very real personality factors in behavioral characteristics that we do associate with people that are spree killers or serial killers, people that have violent tendencies. Psychopathy is something that I very often encounter clinically. And not every psychopath is a killer, but if you're talking about serial killer or spree killing, psychopathy is generally a part of that. But you get psychopathy in a lot of different things. Stockbrokers have a high level of psychopathy. So there are different personality factors that we do associate with very violent criminal activities. And so the question is, starting in childhood, are there diagnoses that we consider as kids, with that idea being, does this person have potential? What is the likelihood of them growing on to become violent offenders in the future? And we do evaluations to try to determine a person or kid's potential for becoming violent, to try to develop a safety profile for this kid. Can we put them back into a general classroom or regular school after they've just spent 4 years in juvenile after killing their brother? So we have to address these questions, and we get our data from a lot of different places, and one of those types of data points is to do a personality account for where do they sit on each of either the big 5 or 16 personality factors, 32 personality factors, depending on what model you're using and what assessment instrument. But you're looking for some very specific characteristics. For example, people that engage in a spree killing, or they're prone to violent crimes, they have a high possibility or likelihood of repeat violence. Those people tend to be quite low in agreeableness. They don't care if you like them. They don't care if you disagree with what they're saying. They just want to fight you. And so, oppositional defiant disorder is definitely can be a precursor to what may be later an antisocial personality disorder diagnosis, or, just being convicted of a violent crime in adulthood. So the pattern of escalation coming out of a psychologist's office, the diagnoses that we may make, usually childhood, we're looking at a diagnosis of oppositional defiant disorder. That can serve as a precursor to a conduct disorder. And a conduct disorder is a much higher standard of, no, this isn't just a bad kid misbehaving. This is a kid with some real criminal behavior and inclination. So oppositional defiant disorder is commonly seen with diagnoses of ADHD. And it does not mean that if a child is diagnosed with ODD that they're going to later develop conduct disorder or become violent criminal element of the community. But it does serve as a precursor for conduct disorder. Conduct disorder is then used as part of the diagnostic criterion for antisocial personality disorder. And then the individual criterion that we might use in ASPD or in conduct disorder, those can be markers for developing a profile for psychopathy and where they sit, on that continuum of psychopath versus non-psychopath. So that's a whole lot of blah, blah, blah about stuff that you probably don't care about. But I say it as a precursor to this. We now know that, well, let me start out by saying this. So I remember reading the article that said that Kohberger's sister said to the family, hey guys, I think we're being foolish to ignore the fact that my brother is wearing gloves around the house. He is up in the middle of the night sorting his trash and then putting his trash in the neighbor's trash bin. And he drives a white Elantra. I think we have to consider that maybe he did it. Now, when I heard that, I thought, good gracious. I have two brothers. I also have, a dad and uncles and sons. And you have to stop and ask yourself, what would it take for you to actually go out and check your child or your brother or your uncle's car because he happens to be driving the same car that they associate with the guy that killed 4 people, or that your brother is walking around wearing plastic gloves? What does it take to make that leap between, of course my brother didn't do it, this is dumb, to, oh, well, y'all stand guard while I go check for blood or IDs or whatever she thought she was looking for. And that the only person that did not believe that Kohberger could be the guy was the dad. Now, I find that highly suspect, but I take everything with a grain of salt. But the reason that I find that suspect is this. So we know that Bryan Kohberger stole from his sister. This is his older sister. And I said at the time that I read that article that the older sister said, I think we have to consider that Bryan did this thing, this nightmare, horrible thing. I think we have to consider that. And I think we should check his car, right? I thought about that. And I said, I think in one of my videos, I hadn't gone back to look, but I think I said, what would have happened some point in their history together as siblings? What could have happened that could have led the sister to make this leap so quickly? Oh, I think that Bryan did it. There had to have been something historically in their relationship that would make them be open to the idea that their brother could be violent and criminally violent, right? Otherwise, where does that idea come from? So I thought that was interesting. Now we've got the story that comes out that says that he stole his sister's $400 iPhone. He paid $20 to someone, a friend or whatever, to drive him to the mall so that he could sell the iPhone and get $200 cash. And we can then presume or assume that he used that $200 to buy his drug of choice at the time was heroin, which is crazy because heroin is one of those drugs that will get the attention of the United States government. It's not weed, right? It's not even like Xanax. Heroin is the big daddy dog of opiates. So to have gotten so involved so deep in the drug use at such an early age is really, really amazing. Okay. Trust me, you don't often hear about young people, 14, 15, 16, using heroin. It usually takes a little while to escalate to that point, right? So there's something about this guy. He just jumped in with both feet. Like he was just went into it deep. And, I think that was what was responsible for the weight loss. People that use opiates, if they're using a lot, they will go through a period of wasting. And that is because they're not eating anything. All they're doing is taking their drug that they like. And so you will see wasting with heroin use, and people get very, very thin and unhealthy looking. And there were some of his photographs that look like that. He looks like a head on a skeleton, and it's pretty bad. So, I don't think the family is in denial. I think it was the exact opposite. I think the family was really open to the idea that it could be him. So he pays maybe $20 driving to the mall. He takes his sister's phone and sells it for half of what it is worth. And the dad, finds out. The sister says, I think Bryan is the one that took my phone. And Bryan is confronted. And so the dad says, well, I'm going to be turning you in to the cops. And tough love is a real thing when you are dealing with young people that are they're having trouble with drinking and drug use. Tough love can be a real thing. They need to experience consequences of what they're doing before it goes on for too long, and they can't benefit from help. So dad calls and turns him in, has him arrested, but before he calls, he says to his dad, and I quote, "Don't do anything stupid." Now, let me just ask you guys this. Does that sound like a threat? Does that sound like a threat coming from an 18-year-old teenager who's been caught stealing? I'm just curious what you guys think. Hey, Nana, welcome. Nobody has an opinion on the whole threat thing? I think it sounds like a threat. Hi, Leba Katz. Marilyn Landis, welcome. All right. So to me, it's a bit kind of threatening, right? And dad was a pretty big guy. I mean, Kohberger is too, but dad's not like this little small thing that could have been pushed around, I don't think, And so I thought it was very interesting that his reaction is to kind of threaten his father, don't do anything stupid. And I hope the dad laughed at him and said, "You're stupid, Bryan." That's what I hope the dad did, instead of giving into that, what I believe is a threat. Marie thinks it kind of sounds like a threat too. Yeah, Moonlight and Hybrid. I definitely think he was attempting to be threatening, right? Hey, apple of his eye, welcome. I'm thinking he borrowed a car. Well, I'm going to get to the car. All right. So right there, we have several different issues. He's stealing. He's already deep into heroin. And he's using threatening behavior to try to get away with his crimes. We're right up there now on diagnostic criteria for either oppositional defiant disorder or conduct disorder. We're already right there in that one incident. And then the result, the cascade of dominoes resulting from stealing the phone. So we've got, I know you guys don't want Bryan Kohberger to be the guy. I get that. I understand that you feel like that perhaps law enforcement manipulated some of the information. You don't see how it's possible this could have been done in 16 minutes. I get all that. I do. I am really, really working hard to look at Bryan Kohberger as innocent. I'm trying to see it, and I can't get there. So one of the things that stops me from getting there is that when I look at this guy, just the little bit that we know, when I look at his childhood and his early adult years, there is some very real antisocial behavior. It's real. It's not made up. It's not contrived by law enforcement. These are real things. His father was willing, with an 18-year-old kid, his father was willing to call the police and have him charged with theft. He was willing to do that. That's not, you can't excuse that. That kind of thing happens. And I work with these types of families. That kind of willingness to call in the cops is going to result in your child at 18 basically maybe getting jail time. That comes after years of watching your child basically throw their life away, talking yourself till you're blue in the face to try to reach this kid and say, please, the path that path that you're on is not going to lead you to a happy and fulfilling life. Stop this, please, please. No more heroin, please. I can't even imagine having to say that to my 15 or 16-year-old child. I just can't even imagine it. But eventually these families get to a place where they realize, I've done everything. I've tried treatment centers. I've begged and pleaded. I've tried paying. I've tried being his buddy. I've tried being his enemy. I've yelled at him. I've been kind to him, and nothing else has worked. I've had it. Now it's time for tough love. You're out on the street. I'm calling the cops. I'm done with this. I'm not going to support you and empower you and enable you to kill your life and kill your future. Not anymore. So if you break the law, sorry, Buster, I'm calling the cops. The last time you stole $100 from your mom's billfold or wallet, I told you that was the last time. From now on, I'm calling the cops, and I'm done. I don't believe there's any way that dad involved the police in stealing the sister's iPhone unless there had been episodes before that were leading up to that. And when they put these kids and these young people into treatment centers, the psychologists and the psychiatrists there, they teach the parents, they teach the family members, you have to draw a line. You cannot continue to enable him or her to continue doing this lifestyle. You just can't do it anymore. So I believe, based on my information and knowledge that I have about the world, I believe that there had already been a long line of criminal acts that resulted in a decision for tough love in an effort to try to help their child. I believe that. Now, I think during the trial, we are going to get access to his background and history, his school records, his arrest records, treatment facilities, how many times that he was put into treatment facilities. And I'm not going to be surprised if there was an ODD diagnosis and a conduct disorder. And then, I don't know at this point if they would, even need to do the ASPD, but I think definitely there'll be ODD and conduct disorder. So that's number one. So he warns his dad, or I think it sounds threatening to say, don't do anything stupid. So we had heroin addiction. We also had stories from friends where he became a bully. And the friend that went on the record and said this happened, that friend said that it was bad. The bullying became so unpleasant that he completely broke off the friendship. We know that Bryan was lying to his friends in an attempt to get his heroin, and that the friends were very angry that he used them to go into a dangerous neighborhood and secure his drugs. So again, those are behaviors that we see with psychopathy or they're antisocial type behaviors. It's also incredibly narcissistic to to use your intellect to make other people feel foolish. Anytime I hear people using these big, $5 words, I sort of chuckle, right? Because that is the perfect mark of someone who has a confidence problem. You're surrounded by smart people all day, every day. They're out there in the world. But many people that are well educated and intelligent, they don't tend toward the verbiage and the lingo that is common to their profession. They don't tend to use that type of language around others. They just want to be comfortable and fit in with everybody and have fun. Now, when you're at work, that's a little different. You do present yourself, as the expert, I suppose, but not in a social kind of setting. And we had so many different people in different ages in his life that came out and said, Bryan talked in a way to make sure that everybody knew he was the smartest guy in the room, that he would where a simple yes or no would have been appropriate to answer a question, he would give you a 30-minute, dissertation defense on what his opinion was. And that is all part of his delusions of grandeur. That was that narcissistic foundation of feeling like he was destined for greatness and that he's better than other people, and that he's built up this mask so that when he presents himself to other people, they only notice his intellect and how superior he is, but they don't notice the fact that, he's a goon gourd. He's a bozo head, if that's a word. Okay. All right. So, all right. Now then, so if you think about, I don't want to talk, I was going to use Josh Duggar as an example, but I don't think I'll do that. So people that are manipulative, psychopaths, right? These people are they're complicated. Now, you will often hear that a serial killer is really, really intelligent. In order for them to qualify as a serial killer, then they had to have at least been smart enough to get away with it a couple of times and not get caught. So maybe that's where the reputation of serial killers have high IQ. Maybe not. Maybe there are plenty of people in prison that would have been inclined to be serial killers, but they were dumb and they got caught the first time out. So they didn't quite get to live up to their fantasy, right? That you do have to be calculating, and you've got to have really good deductive reasoning and abstraction. I mean, in order to avoid getting caught, you have to be smart, and then you qualify as a serial killer after you get 2 or more killing incidents under your belt, right? Otherwise, you're just a dumb killer who didn't get to do all his other fantasies. He just got caught doing his one fantasy. Okay. So I'm a little hesitant on the whole, well, serial killers are always, geniuses. Maybe not. Maybe IQ has nothing to do with the proclivity for serial murder that is based on archetypes, right? Maybe there's plenty of people that would be driven to murder, long black-haired men, but they just only get the one and then they get caught, so they don't ever get to act again. But they still had that they had that fantasy to do that. They just couldn't bring it to fruition because of low IQ. I think that Bryan Kohberger has been presented as such a genius. He's so smart. He's so very, very smart. That came from a woman at DeSalle University who was his professor, who said that she had never written, or maybe this was her, did she say this was her second letter of recommendation for a PhD program, or was Bryan Kohberger the first? You got the impression it wasn't something that she had ever done before, or had only done like one other time, right? And then she goes on to say, I mean, she really amped this up. She said, oh, he's the most brilliant student that I've ever taught. So, do you just believe that? Do you just accept that he was brilliant and he was so great that she wrote her first, letter of recommendation for a PhD program? Well, some people heard that and they ran with that idea and said, oh, he must be really, really brilliant. And I'm thinking, yeah, but how brilliant do you have to be to choose a house where your car that you're driving is going to get captured on any of the cameras that are around? That's number one. How brilliant do you have to be to choose an area where they're going to be able to look at these cameras to see how often your cars come in and out of the neighborhood? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you choose a house where it would be unlikely that they would tend to notice your car? Like, why would you do that? So I have these questions about his brilliance and the fact that he supposedly gets caught the first time out. And the other part of this, and I've heard a lot of law enforcement comment on this, and that is people don't just wake up and commit a quadruple murder. I don't care who they are. It is shocking when you kill someone. It's a surprise. And when you do it with a knife, it's even more complicated because it requires a lot of physical strength. And this guy killed 4 people in 16 minutes. It's very hard to accept, right? But on the other hand, when I look back over his history, knowing what I know, I think, no, I think he definitely could have done it in terms of, am I the kind of person who can do this? Psychopathy. All right. So that his intellect, I'm not really sure about. And so I've been a bit dismissive of this whole, oh, Bryan's such a genius because he's in a PhD program. Look, the majority of people that get accepted into PhD programs, they leave. They don't make it. It's hard. So they only graduate something like 20. I don't know. I used to know 26% of people that enter PhD programs never even finish. Okay. It's difficult. So yeah, maybe he does get accepted, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's automatically so brilliant. So that's how I've been going along. Well, then a couple of days ago, I said, I'm going to think about this from a different perspective. I'm going to consider and make the assumption that Bryan Kohberger got 152 IQ, that he's a member of Mensa, and he's just the smartest dude walking around in Idaho. That's what I decided. Okay. And I thought, how does that change my calculus on this crime scene and timeline? If I assume that he is brilliant, does that change the way that I look at the timeline and what we know about the crime scene? Okay. And it does. It made things a lot different for me. Now, serial kill, most people kill for money or love or all those kinds of things. But serial killers are obviously, they're really motivated by different goals or compulsions. I spoke earlier about about a serial killer's archetype, who their victim is. What does the victim look like? Or is this person being motivated by sexual needs, or to act out revenge, or a type of communal cleansing? But the facts are that other types of murders are fairly selfish or revenge, meaning there's some kind of like relationship, somehow a relationship between the person that's killing and the person that is killed. Or there's a desired goal in mind, like money, right? But with serial killers, it could be something completely different. It could be that they just see a long blonde hair with blue eyes, female, and just the physical sight of this person is enough to start fire up the compulsion. And so they become obsessed with that person and follow them and stalk them, go back into their background and history and try to learn all they can learn about them. And it becomes a very personal relationship with the victim. The victim has no idea it's going on, or usually doesn't know, that it's going on. We do know that Kaylee had complained, had talked with her parents. She felt like someone was watching her. So that would go along with some of Bryan's behavior that we know about. And here is one example. One of the things that has come out is that Bryan tricked a female and made her trust him so that he could then gain access, put up a security system, and ostensibly now he knows the security code to the system, and he can now have access to this girl anytime he wants to. He can listen to her conversation she's having. He can monitor the cameras to see who's coming to her house or not, what kind of conversations they're having, learn about when she wakes up, when she goes to bed, to sleep, what kind of food she eats. And so I thought about that. I thought, but wait a minute, how does he gain her trust? Like, why would that happen? And so then I started looking at the old reports when this first started coming out. And sure enough, the earlier news articles that were talking about the fact that he had put in these cameras, they said that it was a colleague, which opens the door to, was it his suite mate? So there were 3 PhD students in one office that were sharing an office space, and one of those was an Asian woman. We know that one of the witnesses said that they often saw him with an Asian woman in his car, him dropping her off, I guess at her apartment maybe. So I thought that's got to be the one, because how else would he get somebody to trust him, right? And when you say one of his colleagues, so I kind of think it might have been the coworker, the other teaching assistant. I kind of think it might have been her. And the reason that I think that is because we got background and history that shows that Bryan Kohberger was socially clumsy, that his pragmatics were just bad. People felt uncomfortable being around him. He had very little insight. He went into a restaurant, and when he would try to introduce himself to a woman, he would, start asking about where she lived, and, just things that don't inspire confidence, in a bar. And so I thought, it'd be hard to believe that he cultivated a friendship without there being some reason that person would have a feeling of trust. And if they were working together at the college, even sharing an office space, that might explain why she would feel safe to say, hey, will you install these cameras? and will you, here's a password to my Wi-Fi, and that she might have that feeling of presumed safety simply because they work together. So maybe, we don't know. There could be other possibilities too, but I don't know. Knowing what we know about this guy, I don't think there were very many people that were trying to be friends with him. I think he made people uncomfortable. We've seen the video of him talking to the female cop. It's weird. He doesn't make women feel relaxed, I don't think. I think he's kind of, some people picking up on something strange about him. So that brings us to this question of psychopathy and gaslighting or manipulation, and the fact that serial killers need to be trustworthy. Otherwise, how do they get the opportunity to act out their fantasy? We know Ted Bundy, one way that he would get the trust of women is he would have a broken arm. He would wear a cast on his arm. And then he'd, act like he was going to be spilling a bag of groceries or trying to carry something heavy. And then, he'd say, oh my gosh, can you help me? And then the ladies would be like, oh my God, of course. What'd you do to your arm? And it just caught him completely by surprise. He'd get them to his car. And then when they were feeling most relaxed and safe, he, would hit them with the chloroform and they would be out like a light. So remember, Bryan Kohberger is a student of criminality, and so he knows these famous violent offenders, and he's read their stories, and he knows what they did to try to he knows what they did that made them successful, like using the chloroform, right? So so I got off on my, let's see, stepwise fit. Yeah. Okay. So psychopathy and using gaslighting or manipulation to put other people at ease in order to accomplish what their goals were. And I thought about him being a student of crime and violent behavior, and how other serial killers have gotten away with it, thinking about Ted Bundy. And I was thinking about, how does he make friends with some young woman? And I think if it's a coworker, that automatically sort of gives him a little bit of credibility, and maybe she felt a misplaced sense of safety, perhaps. But nonetheless, he then, after he, gets access, he begins to move things around in her apartment or house. He begins to manipulate things, and pretty soon she now is feeling like someone is coming into her personal space and is freaked out by it, and she needs someone to help her, and it is him that she reaches out to. Now he gets in and he gets access to her world. But doesn't he also get access to her neighborhood? Because I was thinking about the external cameras. A well-positioned camera makes it easy to see who's driving up and down the street at any hour of the day. And part of me wonders, I wonder if this young woman lives on either Queen Street or King Street. And is that how she got targeted? Is that the friend in the neighborhood that I have continued to feel like has to be there? I think he knows somebody close to their house. I really do. So maybe she's the one that he knows, right? And so he it wasn't just that he wanted to invade this girl's life. He's not going to hurt her. She's too close to him at the college. But maybe it gave him access to another house, or at least to watch people coming and going, so that he could get an idea of what the neighborhood is like at different times of the day and night. And that would feed the planning that he was going through. So that led me then at that point Oh, one more thing to consider before I get into the fine details of the arrest warrant and whatnot. Kohberger wants, we know that this was official, right? He wants to teach law enforcement how to deal with digital evidence, or how criminals use digital or virtual evidence, and how they're caught or not caught, how they evade it, right? So he this is a goal that he has set, and he has been publicly vocal about that. And so now I'm thinking about this not as Bryan Kohberger is a goon gourd with a serious personality disorder. I stopped and I said, well, I'm going to consider him to be a genius, 152 IQ. And how does that change the way that this story looks? And I thought, well, let's start with the digital evidence. If he knows that he's going to commit these murders, what would he do with his heightened knowledge of the virtual world landscape, combined with law enforcement and the legal system using digital evidence to convict someone? Knowing that information, how would that affect the way that he approached this crime? We know that violent offenders, they do spend time trying to establish an alibi, so that when the time comes and they're questioned, they'll say, no, wasn't me. I was, see, check this out. I was watching this movie at this date and this time. Scott Peterson did that. He talked about watching Martha Stewart, or that Lacey was watching Martha Stewart. So they would take time to develop an alibi. And what would that look like if somebody decided that they would try to use digital evidence to try and establish an alibi, or at least to say, no, he couldn't have been doing it because blah, 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 blah. So that brought me to a couple of thoughts. I've always been bothered by the car. I think the car's behavior isn't, let me case the joint, park, go in and commit a quadruple murder in 16 minutes, run back to my car, and then drive away laughing. The behavior of the car didn't send that message. The behavior of the car is, I'm supposed to pick someone up. I don't see them. Am I in the wrong place? Where are they? That's what the car's behavior looks like to me. And so I was thinking about that, and I thought, okay, well, let's just look at this from a completely different point of view. First of all, Jack DeCoeur has a car that is a near, it's nearly identical to the Elantra, the Hyundai Elantra. So does he know this? Does Kohberger know this? He's obviously studying this area. So is he aware that there's another car there that looks like what he would be driving? That led me to think about the DoorDash guy. What kind of car was the DoorDash driver in? Because all we know is about vehicle number one. Why? That naturally says there's a vehicle 2 at least, and maybe vehicle 3, but that's not in the arrest affidavit. Why did they need to say vehicle number 1? And later they expanded the date range for the Elantra, and that is causing people to be really distrustful of some of the evidence that's been collected. It is in fact the car combined with Dylan's words that have restricted us to 16-minute window. If we don't have Dylan commenting, and we don't get so invested in this car as being Bryan Kohberger's car, then our time window expands from 16 minutes to 1 hour and 12 minutes. So it goes from 16 minutes up to 72 minutes. And that's a lot of time. Okay. So the car is initially seen at around 3:29. Is that right? 3:29? Yeah, 3:29. The car is initially seen around 3:29, and it's making multiple passes by the house, but it's also engaging in some really attention-getting maneuvers. And this is all happening between 3:29 and 4:04, right? And again, it's attention-getting maneuvers. It's almost like the car's going, hey, look at me. Notice me on the camera. So if I go by, well, I thought I wrote it down. Hold on. If we go by the timeline for the kids coming in at the end of the night and whatnot, Ethan and Xana came in at 1. Hold on, I'm looking at my good timeline. 1:45. Kaylee is calling for an Uber, but Ethan and Xana have arrived at King Roadhouse. So they're home. They're there. At 1:56, Kaylee and Madison they arrive at the house. And it was kind of strange because if you remember, law enforcement went a long time without acknowledging that. And it was actually Kaylee's sister who discovered all of this, which was amazing. But originally the cops didn't really want to acknowledge that. But we know now, this is good, information, that they arrived at, 1:56. And then these bizarre phone calls to Jack begin at 2:26. Now, there's a reason that I'm double checking as I speak, because this is weird. This is a weird, these are weird events at weird times. It's really crazy. And I sat down and I wrote this out minute by minute. And I kept thinking it's almost like somebody was intentionally misleading the cops. Now, I know what you guys are going to say. You guys are going to say, no, it's because Bryan Kohberger is innocent. But I'm not even looking or thinking about Bryan Kohberger is the man at this point. I'm simply looking at the unusual set of time stamps and activities that happened in the house. So from 2:26 to 2:44 a.m., Kaylee and Madison are calling Jack Decor in a pattern of behavior that is really strange. There's a level of urgency. And I think a lot of us sort of looked at that and we thought, well, what is that when the killings were happening? Were they reaching out, trying to get help? And he's like closest to them. And, what is it? And I thought, well, Kaylee's not really supposed to be there. They've just seen Jack at the corner, the bar. And, maybe Kaylee is just trying to say, can I come over to your house, or will you come to my house? And, I'm leaving in the morning. I won't be seeing you again for a long time. And, is that what she was focused on? The other thing I thought about is that Madison, we saw her. She was literally stumbling. She was very, very intoxicated. Kind of like when she's standing there, you can see her swaying. Right? She's really intoxicated. So have you ever been that intoxicated and tried to lay in a bed at 3 a.m. and have a conversation? Because usually the person, the bed is spinning, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And if they try to stay awake, they very often will start vomiting. And so most people with that level of intoxication, they hit the bed and they're just like, boom, I'm out, right? Down for the count. And that is very typical for some, the party group in college, not all college students, but the ones that like to party. Kaylee was not that intoxicated, and we have her call in Jack 6 times between 2:26 and 2:44. So she's calling, and then there's a little bit of time, and then she's calling, and then there's a little bit of time, and then she's calling, and then there's a little bit of time, a couple of minutes between each of these calls. Then at 2:44, Madison is making a call at 2:44 to Jack D, but suddenly, I'm sorry, Kaylee is making what is her 5th call. 1, 2, 3, 4, her 5th call. Kaylee is making her 5th call to Jack at 2:44, and suddenly Maddie jumps in and makes her first call at the same time. They are each calling Jack at 2:44 a.m. Madison makes a 2nd call at 2:44. So she called and then hung up and then immediately called again. So Kaylee ends up with 6 phone calls, but in this, I don't know, what is it? 36, 18-minute window of time from 2:26 to 2:44, 18 minutes. She's made about 6 phone calls. So about 3 minutes. Of course, it wasn't methodical like that, but just for our own conceptualization, about 2 to 3 minutes between each phone call. Kaylee's made a lot of these calls, boom, 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 boom. And then we get her calling at the same exact time that Maddie is calling. And Maddie makes 2 calls at 2:44 to Jack. And then there's 8 minutes. Is that right? Nearly 10 minutes between no more calls from Kaylee. And Maddie made 2 calls to Jack and stopped. And there's nearly 10 minutes that goes by. And suddenly, after 10 minutes, both Maddie and Kaylee call at 2:52. And these were the last phone calls that were made on their devices. So I want you to try to put yourself in that bedroom with those 2 girls. Kaylee is calling. And then they're talking a few minutes, it's ringing, and she's like, I wonder why he's not answering. Maybe I should go over and see him. And then she calls again. And then she calls again. And then she calls again. 15, 18 minutes of this. Finally, Maddie calls again. And then almost 10 minutes, no calls. And then randomly you get 1 call from Maddie, 1 call from Kaylee, both at exactly the same time. Why? I think that's when they died. If we're going to assume that Bryan Kohberger is this genius, right, that everybody wants to make him, I don't think he is, but I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm trying to look at Bryan Kohberger like he is innocent, to see if it changes the way that I look at the timeline and the evidence that we've been given. What if he was in that house and he was hiding because he was after Madison? And Kaylee wasn't supposed to be there. Kaylee was supposed to be gone, remember? And if he has gained access to this group, then he possibly would have known that Kaylee was supposed to be on her way to Austin. And so he would believe that he was the only one there upstairs, not the rest of the house, but upstairs. He would believe that he might be the only one there, and then he could do whatever he wanted to with Madison. It was Madison that received this series of greetings from Kohberger in the weeks leading up to the murders, but they went directly into messages requested, and they don't know if doesn't look like she responded. Also, her working at the Mad Greek might have been a point where he would have begun to notice her and fall under her spell. But nevertheless, perhaps he believed she was going to be the only one there on the top level, and he was going to make her sorry. His fantasy was to exert control, to dominate, and take back some of his power that he got his feelings hurt because she was, ignoring him. And then so at 2:52, Maddie's third call and Kaylee's seventh call to Jack DeCoeur, I might even think that perhaps Madison may have actually been passed out because she had been so intoxicated, and maybe Kaylee was using both phones. Maybe she had made all these phone calls and she thought, I wonder if he's intentionally avoiding my calls. Here, let me call on Maddie's phone and see if he'll answer Maddie's phone call. So I think she wasn't supposed to be there. And if you believe Papa Rogers and his description of what happened, he says that the killer would have been with Madison hurting her, and that Kaylee walked in and interrupted. And he was very furious that Kaylee interrupted him. And so he killed her in a very violent way, as opposed, I guess, to his weird kind of serial killer loving way. I don't know how you want to describe that, but that the death of Kaylee was much more violent and destructive than the death of Madison. And then Madison would have already been dead before he killed Kaylee, because he talks about throwing her into the bed on top of Madison. The sheath in the bed gives me this image that he may have been being very ritualistic in what he was doing to Madison. And it's almost like, you open up the knife and you slide it out of the sheath, and it's very ceremonial-ish type of ritual. And that he's really into the moment of what he's doing with Madison, and he believes that that Kaylee is not there. And then suddenly Kaylee walks into the room and he grabs her and he does what he says that he does. And now both of the phones are there. Did he make those last two phone calls in an effort to try to throw off the timeline? Because now at this point, according to this wild speculation, he's got to get out of the house. The magic of his ritual was broken by Kaylee entering the room, which is exactly what was described by Papa Rogers. So now, rather than being in his fantasy and acting out this story, this fantasy on Madison, now he's snapped back to the here and now, and he's going, oh my God, how do I get out of here now? He could, if this is true, he could have conceivably had an hour with Madison and maybe Kaylee. However, and the only people that really have any idea of that are, I guess, the investigators, because they're the ones that know what the room looked like, right? All right, now then, so let's just say that this weird set of events happened, and maybe the barking, Murphy, the dog, maybe Murphy barking was when Bryan Kohberger is trying to leave the room, leave the house. The dog wouldn't have been barking. When they all arrived home, Murphy would have been excited. He would have been dancing around and barking. So he may have been saying, hey, don't go up there. There's someone up there. There's a man up there. It doesn't belong in this house. The girls could have just treated it like normal celebration that dogs do, right? And then if they had gotten him to go up the stairs and calm down, and he's going, well, maybe the man's supposed to be here because they're telling me to be quiet and they're telling him to relax, and so I guess I better do that. And so, like dogs act, he just would have acclimated because the girls wouldn't have seemed to have been worried. I still think that he was in that house when they all arrived home and he was hiding. I just think that somehow it's the only thing that makes sense. If you even want to have him entering the house at 4 a.m., what are you doing about Xana being up on TikTok? Are you really saying that he sneaks in the house at 4 a.m., sneaks upstairs, kills 2 people, and then comes back downstairs before Xana is ever alerted? She's been home 2 hours. She got food. I don't believe that. I think he got in the house when they were all gone. I really do. And I think he was patient and calculating, like we know psychopaths can be. And so then that brings us to, let me see if I did everything I wanted to. That brings us to, I suppose, another possibility that I said was he could have, Maddie was passed out, but he could have been surprised that Kaylee was there. He sneaked into her room and scared her and said, behave yourself, and said, get in the room with Madison, and then killed her. And then went to Maddie. Maybe that was the sequence, but I don't think so. I think Maddie was the first, and that just like Papa Roger said, Kaylee interrupted. He reacted with great frustration at having been interrupted, killed Kaylee, and the fantasy was broken. And now he's focused on getting out. And as he tries to leave, he alerts the dog now that something's wrong. I would suspect too the smell of blood would have been enough to probably get Murphy pretty upset. Okay. So I have 2 issues. Number 1 is Dylan. If we ignore Dylan's timeline, I know that's weird, but hear me out. Why are we going to believe a girl who is able to fall asleep after being face to face with a masked guy wearing all black in their house in the middle of the night? She had to have been very intoxicated or on some kind of, sedative type drug. We're in agreement there. So why are we going to accept that, oh yeah, she was able to fall asleep because she was very intoxicated, but you're going to believe her estimate of 4 a.m. she starts hearing all these things? Or that she knows what order things happened in? Or that her recognition of somebody's voice from upstairs with the dog barking would be accurate? I don't think we can trust her. I don't mean because she's untrustworthy. I mean because I think she was really drunk or on something. So I'm not so sure. I think she may have heard these things, but that she doesn't really have a handle on when all these things took place, right? So that's first thing. If I do away with this supposed, sighting from Dylan, because we can't really it's hard to get a timeline off of that because her cognition was so impaired and disrupted. The things that we have good information on are 412. We know at 412, Xana's TikTok was in use. And I can't imagine how the killer would have been on her TikTok. That's weird to think about. But Let's assume she was in the room, you know. We also know, or the cops know, we don't know, but the cops know the exact time of delivery of the DoorDash. So we know that, or the cops do. Okay. So we're told that some right at 4:00 for something, right? And the other thing that we have carved in stone is at 2:17, we have what sound like whispers and then a thud. Now we're all tuned in and we're all geared in on this violence, some indication that violence is happening, right? But can I ask you a question? What if you're outside and you're looking for a ride and it's 4 a.m. and the car drives up and they roll down the window and they said, "Where have you been?" And he says, I know, I got caught, I couldn't. And then he gets in the car and slams the door. Would that sound like a thud on a camera? So maybe there was whispering. Maybe there was some light communication. But why are we naturally assuming that it was the murders? I think it was whoever was supposed to be there to pick up whoever the killer was. I think it was, where the hell have you been? I know. They came home. They interrupted me. Let's get out of here. That was at 4:17. 3 minutes later, the car's caught on camera speeding, quote unquote, speeding out of the neighborhood. Timeline works. That works. So 4:17, we get whispers and a thud from a security camera. 4:12, we know that there was TikTok was in use. And at sometime around 4:00, we know that there was a DoorDash delivery. And at between, here's another time we have 3:29 to 4:04, this car is creating a commotion in the neighborhood. It's driven past 3-4 times. It's done these 3-point back up and go forward and back up and go forward. It's gone down Queen Street. It's gone down King Street. It's getting a lot of damn attention for somebody who's planned and masterminded the crime of the century. It's just a big red flag saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And those are the things I believe. Oh, and we can count on the phone calls. The phone calls are accurate. All right. So he would have. He could have been in the home before 1:49 a.m. in the morning, because Xana and Ethan arrive home at 1:49. Or Xana and Ethan could have gone straight to bed, maybe asleep by 2 or whatever. And now he feels safe coming in and be there at, before 1:56, which would have been a little bit before 2. Or he came in at 3. So I think, based on the phone, the strange phone activity that happened, I think that could have been, if we're engaging in wild speculation, was that Kohberger creating digital evidence? Was that him creating some kind of, or what he was hoping, or what he thought would be a disruption in the timeline? It's a question. I don't know it to be, but I'm just, thinking. So that brings me to the second issue. So the first issue are the timestamps of things that we can count on and the things we can't count on. I do not at all consider Dylan and what she said, because I think she was drunk or high on something, and therefore her time would have been disrupted. She would have no idea about the passage of time or anything like that. So that brings us to the second issue, which is the car. And that the car is going to lead us into the Uber, or the DoorDash issue. And it's this. We know that Xana's food was delivered at 4, but what we don't know is, did Xana eat her food? I want to know that. I want to know, did she eat the food, or was the food still in the bag, in the kitchen, or on the sofa, or in the bedroom? Where was the DoorDash bag? Was there any food eaten? That's really important to me, and I will tell you why. Because I think these timestamps that we have are important. And the timestamps are telling us that there's a lot of activity at 4 o'clock, which also matches up with Kohberger trying to get out of that house. And part of me thinks, was this Kohberger that arranged for the DoorDash, or was this the getaway driver who said, holy shit, where is he? He was supposed to be in, steal whatever he was going to steal, and get out. And yet I've been here now for an hour. Where is he? I wonder if he got caught. Oh my God, what should I do? And he sets up the DoorDash as a ruse to get to the door and see, well, are the roommates answering the door? Who's awake? If I do a DoorDash for one of the roommates, and then that provides Bryan opening the door and saying, let's get the hell out of here, then, oh well. And it's kind of what happened, isn't it? It's kind of what happened. You can almost see that Xana was in the bedroom on her TikTok at 4:12. Maybe the food came at 4, and she's like, weird. Why is somebody delivering food here? And maybe that's why she tossed the bag on the kitchen counter where we see it through the window, and then goes on back to bed. She's trying to fall back asleep, so she checks her TikTok one more time. And then when Kohberger finally gets to that point of, okay, I've killed her. My fantasy got interrupted by Kaylee. Now she's dead too. And maybe he's up there being very quiet. Maybe he's thinking, I wonder if it woke anybody up. I wonder if the dog barking has wakened anyone. Let me be uber still and not move and wait and see what happens. And so then when the dog begins to, quiet back down, or he's in the bathroom getting cleaned up, trying not to wake anybody up or alert anybody. Because let's face it, if you're on the second floor, this is your house where you live, your friends went out and got drunk. You hear them up in the bathroom taking a shower. What are you going to think? You're going to think, oh, well, they got sick. Maybe they were vomiting. Now they're taking a shower and cleaning up. He did it. There was really not anything that said he had to be super quiet. He just had to not attract a lot of attention, because you were supposed to have Xana and Ethan and Dylan and Bethany. They all believed that Kaylee and Madison were upstairs. So if they heard somebody walking around or taking a shower, flushing a toilet, there's nothing that says it. They would have been worried or scared. It's a really interesting thought. If you leave out the phone calls, it actually, if you don't consider the phone calls as having any kind of pattern or intent to disrupt the timeline, if you leave that alone, it actually widens your window of opportunity. Because he could have gone in there and had an hour or more with Madison before Kaylee walked in and interrupted him and then him kill her. So what is for sure is this: the car is there between 3:30 and 4, but there's not really a lot going on in the house between 3:30 and 4. The girls are making this weird set of phone calls, right? That's about it, and then it ends. And then about the time that Bryan Kohberger, what they want us to believe is that Bryan Kohberger makes his getaway, the 16 minutes of opportunity that we've been told, that is actually the time frame when the white car shows back up. Between 3:29 and 4:04, they weren't seeing the white car, right? Am I right? Wait a minute. Let me double check what I'm seeing here. I don't want to misspeak. $2:26. Kaylee starts a succession of 6 phone calls to Jack DeCoeur. Maddie makes 2 phone calls to Jack DeCoeur. At 2:52, which is almost 10 minutes later, there is 1 call from Kaylee's phone and 1 call from Madison's phone to Jack DeCoeur. And then 60 minutes plus 12 minutes goes by. The car reappears at 4:04. So the car hadn't been seen since 3:29. It reappears at 4:04. The DoorDash delivery was sometime right there at 4 o'clock. 4:12, Xana is on TikTok, and at 4:17, you get the whispers and the thud. So him trying to leave that house at 4:12 and alerts Xana, and Xana yells, "Someone is in the house," waking Ethan up. And then both of those murders happen. And he, from 4:12 to 4:17, he reacts for his life, kills Xana and Ethan, and gets out and gets in the car at 4:17. And 3 minutes later, the camera picks him up speeding away. That works. So if we assume that Xana and that Kaylee and Madison are the ones that did indeed make these phone calls, that was all over at 2:52, almost 3 o'clock in the morning. And the DoorDash happened an hour later. Let me restate my timeline. I thought I got it wrong. Let me restate it. The car is seen making 3 to 4 passes by the house between 3:29 and 4:04. I keep thinking that's not right. Hold on. No, I am right. My poor brain. 3:29. Such a weird timeline. Timeline's been narrowed down to a 16-minute window between 4:04 and 4:20. Right. But the car is what I want to know about. The car is seen making the 4th pass starting at 3:29. Okay, so the car driving around from 3:29 to 4:04. $4:20, the white Elantra has not been seen since 4:04. So I got that. I actually said that a little bit backwards. Sorry about that, y'all. 404 to 420, the car not seen. All right. Okay. So from 329 to 404, this car supposedly that is there to create the murder of the century and not leave any evidence and be committed by a genius who's not going to draw attention to themselves. You've got this ridiculous car driving around for 30 minutes before the murders supposedly happen, creating a spectacle of itself, knowingly being recorded on cameras. I don't know if you guys can hear the outside. 1 minute. There's the lawn people are outside. I'm sorry. So from 330 to 404, this car's just driving around and making sure that it's seen on these two short streets, King and Queen. But if he's already in that house, if he got there at 2 o'clock, he's had plenty of time to do the dirty deed. What if he contacted a friend and said, oh, hey, dude, I've been with this girl, picked her up at the bar. Now I'm ready to leave. Can you come pick me up? Right? And so he thinks, well, I'm going to be out there at 3 o'clock. The guy's going to pull up, pick me up, and I'm out of here. But instead, he gets interrupted by Kaylee. Then he ends up having to fight his way through Xana and Ethan. And all this is happening while the driver's driving around going, where is Bryan? He said he would be right here. I wonder if he meant Queen Street. Let me go look over there. No, he's not here. Where? I know what he said. Where is the guy? You see what I mean? And it is it's a curious thought that at 417, it very well could have been the car pulling up. Maybe Bryan's walking down the road or something thinking, holy shit, I got to get out of here. And the guy comes up and he says, where you been? I've been driving around looking for you. And Bryan's like, shut up, get out. Come on, let's go. And you hear the car thud when he closes the door. And then at 420, it's picked up on camera. So there are some other possibilities rather than what's being madly discussed right now. So I would like to know if the DoorDash food was eaten or touched. I'd like to know that. I would like to know what the DoorDash car looked like. Was the DoorDash car another white two-door car? Maybe it was Kohberger driving the so-called getaway car, and his friend is the one that said, hey, I'm in trouble. I need you to come pick me up. Maybe that's what it was. I would also want to know, according to the DoorDash, I would want to know the pattern of orders from Xana. Was that normal? Was that expected behavior for her to call for food at 4 o'clock in the morning after a night out partying and drinking? Because you know as well as I do, college students are creatures of habit. And their pattern of partying and whatnot is they get into a rut and they kind of do the same thing week after week after week. So I think it would be really important for the prosecutors to look at the history of her Uber orders to see, was this the only time she had ever ordered food at 4 a.m.? Because if it is, that opens up the door to, oh, maybe she's not the one that ordered it at all. Maybe Maybe it was the getaway driver who ordered it to try to help Bryan get out of that house without being seen. And again, above all else, Kaylee wasn't supposed to be there. And if he had developed a way to get information about them, like a security camera, where he could watch the house and he could watch the pattern of coming and going, maybe he would have known that she was gone, that she was supposed to be going to Austin, and that was a done deal. And he would not have to worry about her. Another possibility for the DoorDash, maybe he intentionally watched and found a driver, a food delivery of somebody driving a white car like his. And then that was the way that he managed to get into the house with it without anybody knowing that it was him. That he would call it as a ruse, make an order for one of the girls living there, and then the DoorDash guy would come. He would be waiting, maybe hiding behind another car or whatever. The DoorDash guy would come, ring the doorbell, put the food down, and then when the girls opened the door, then he could rush and get in before the person could get the door shut. So one of the reasons that I did this, that I went through this process, one of the reasons that I did this was sort of to show that we don't have all the information. We have only a morsel of what the prosecution wanted us to have. All the prosecution had to do was just presumption great, right? That looking at these particular set of circumstances, this is why we believe we have the right guy. And then the grand jury was provided limited information, just enough to get a group of people to say, you know, more likely than not, this is probably the guy that did it. And his DNA at the scene right there makes it very difficult to rule him out. However, when you go to court, that will be the time during a jury trial. During a trial is the time then that you, as the defense witness attorney, begin to present information to draw a question saying, well, just because there's a little bit of DNA on the snap, does that really mean that he actually cut them? We don't have the knife. We don't know if that's true. And we don't even have any knowledge about his, hobbies and interests that would lead us to believe that he would have the skill or ability to cut human skin. So there's a couple of different standards here. The one standard is we just need to get an arrest. And we need to present enough to make people scared to give him bail, right? The other part of it, that's where you get the challenge to the evidence, saying no. I know what the prosecution is telling us, but there are other explanations. And what I gave you today was an other explanation for the timeline. And go and look at, you've got to admit it, looking at those phone calls from those two girls, that was very unusual. That was not the norm. And it certainly was not normal that Maddie was so drunk that she's swaying, to and fro as she's waiting on food. And yet you've got her awake for another 2 hours and she's calling people. I don't know what you were doing during your college age, but I know I wasn't out partying. Okay. So frustrating that we have so little. I agreed. I think the DoorDash is interesting. Who ordered it? Yes, Marie. I mean, how many times have people called for DoorDash, or they've called for pizza and had, hey, we need 50 pizzas because we're having a bachelorette party, and I'll pay you when you get here, and I'm gonna give you $100 tip. And how many times do people do that? They did it enough to where now if you try to do it, they demand payment before they'll make it. So yeah, I could see where you might be able to make a DoorDash order at someone else's expense. That would be a reason that you would want to gather her history of orders to just see if that was something that was out of the ordinary that night, or if it was something she did all the time. So it was probably her, right? All right. Kelly O, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you do and bringing us some clarity to this crazy case. A voice of reason is everything. Thank you. I cannot thank you enough. Sometimes I just irritate people, Kelly. So it's very nice to get a kind word. I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, Latitude. Chef also lied. Oh my God. Is Chef Inan Harsh? Oh, that guy. I think Chef lied in his interview that he saw it on the news prior to the police knocking that early afternoon. He is suspicious. He had some photographs that he put up that were very, very suspicious, considering that we were told later that Bryan, when he circled around and then went up north, that he went to the coffee shop. Remember? Well, we also got a photo from Inan Harsh that shows his Jeep sitting outside of a coffee shop. So somebody want to explain that to me? Yeah, I think he's a shady guy. So frustrating, thought-provoking. Thank you, Hope Diamond. Gianna Marie, how are you? Reasonable thought isn't popular. No, it's not, Hybrid. What is popular is to scream and yell and make a commotion. That is what is popular. But we don't do that. Because it's embarrassing. If you're screaming and yelling on YouTube and crying and making people look at you, please stop. You got to have some dignity, man. Have some dignity. Feel proud of who you are. His car was tracked by Kopaka's house afterwards. Look, you're not going to catch me saying that Brett Kopaka is not interesting as a potential factor. But still, here's if I'm going to think about Brett Kopaka as being the doer, the one who did the dirty deed, then how is it that he even came on our radar? Well, he came on our radar because the day that Bryan and his father leave town is the day that this guy shoots up some people and dies, correct? And he did. Let's be fair. When his dad is talking to the cop about this situation, he says something and Bryan's going, no, I don't think we know that, Dad. Like, he's like, shut up. What are you talking about? So Bryan did have a strange reaction to his dad talking about that with the cop. And so if you're going to believe, see, this is where I think that this, I love Bryan Kohberger crowd has not really thought this all the way through. It's this. When I look at the way that car behaved, I think that was a getaway driver. That was someone looking for another guy, whether he thought Bryan's in there stealing something or Bryan shows up to pick up a friend who is doing something wrong. However it plays out, he's still there. He's still involved. So who's the second guy? Well, let's say Brent Kopaka is the second guy, whether he's the shooter or he's the getaway driver, or not the shooter, but the knifer, or he's the getaway driver. Either one, you still have to think of this in your calculations. And none of you have. I haven't seen a single one of you comment on this. if this guy is involved and you make that connection because he does this whole crazed shooter thing on the day that Bryan leaves town, then why aren't you factoring in, well, probably Bryan is the one that killed him? Why aren't you factoring that in? But you're not. All you're thinking of is, I have to prove that Bryan Kohberger didn't do this. Let me ask you another question. Why are you so interested in proving that Bryan Kohberger didn't do this when his own father, after being threatened, dad, don't do anything stupid, and his dad went ahead and called the cops and said, my son has stolen my daughter's phone and we want you to come and get him. And they pressed charges, and that's how they learned that he got $200 cash for the phone. Why are you so convinced that Bryan is just this brilliant, geeky little PhD student when his own family said, I think we better consider that he might have done this? Come on, people, tighten up, man. No, it's views. Can we be honest? It's all about views and money. That's why you're doing it. You're being controversial, right? Who believes the pro Kohberger crowd is just they're being controversial to stir up interest, to increase views? It's like the ultimate clickbait. If you think this is like the ultimate clickbait, put a 1. Is this a more sophisticated version of the shadow conspiracy with Chris Watts? Right? That we got to involve a veteran with PTSD, that we're more inclined to involve him in this, and what? Having Kohberger kill the veteran? Because that's the only way I can make sense of it. Oh, Brett had to die because he knew the secrets. Okay, well then that makes your boy a single murderer, but he's still a murderer. I'm telling you, it's messy, 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 messy. Okay, so a lot of people are saying it's clickbait. I just can't believe he worked with someone. Dignity, Jules, dignity yields no supply. Dignity, you get no narcissistic supply. You get very little cash, and you get almost 0 views. Because let's face it, dignified behavior is everywhere. So why would you want to watch it on YouTube, right? He did it, in my humble opinion. You think Brent did it, or you think Kohberger did it? Who questioned the DoorDash guy? Which one of the officers questioned the DoorDash guy? Great question, because we know that Anne is trying to get training records for only a handful of the cops. If one of them is the same cop that questioned the DoorDash company, that would be very interesting, right? That would be very interesting. Well, Jules might yell and scream afterwards off air. Oh, come on, big ups. I have been known to raise my voice in frustration. I won't lie. Thought-provoking. Thank you, Hope Diamond. Reasonable thought isn't popular. It was very strange. All right, I'm going to go way back, because when I'm going through this type of video, I'm trying to like stay focused on, because it was complicated with the whole timeline issue. So I don't look at chat because I get distracted. And then at the end of the video, then I go and I look at chat and comment and talk and everything. So if you've made comments and I haven't responded, I'm about to. Marie says, Bryan Kohberger has no friends. He was a loner, which tells you something right there, right off the bat. Here's the reality. Human beings are herd animals. We are absolutely, you ask any psychologist, psychiatrist, sociologist who's trained and not just pretending to be one on YouTube, ask them, is it, do people who need people, remember Barbara Streisand? How could she be wrong? Yes, they're the luckiest people in the world. We are herd animals. We run in packs. And when you find a herd animal that is on their own, who is isolated, it's generally because they're sick. That animal has something wrong with him, which is why he's not with the rest of the herd. And human beings are no different. We are herd animals. And Bryan Kohberger was essentially alone. The few people that he befriended or had some kind of connection to, he exploited them. He used them, or he just used them for narcissistic supply by making fun of them and bullying them, stealing from them. Yeah, maybe Levissi Hatfield. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your first name. Do we have a second person now? There's been that argument about a second person. I don't think a second person at the scene. I think if there's a second person, it's more about who's driving the car. Do we even know? Can I be honest here? Do we even know, with the information that's been released to the court so far, we don't even know that Bryan Kohberger was in that white car. Again, I'm asking you to really be logical. If you know that you're going to kill someone and you've been casing this place for a couple of months, why would you drive your car around the neighborhood attracting attention? Why would you do that? If you're going to turn your phone off and you're going to leave your car in your apartment, or you're going to go through these steps to try to say, no, I wasn't here, why would you back up and go forward and backward? It's almost like whoever was driving the car wanted one of the security cameras to see the car. Is this a mark of Bryan Kohberger's knowledge about digital evidence and virtual forensics? And it was designed to mislead? Got to consider that. Got to think about it. What kind of car Kopacka drove? I don't know that. Did Dylan let him in through her window, or is that where he entered when no one was home? I feel like because they were all out that night, it was a party night, and that we know that they were all gone, and then they all came in around 2. By 2 a.m., they were all in the house. So they all came in during this, kind of window of time. They would have been seeing each other, saying her you do tonight? Did you have fun? Okay, now we're going to bed. And then Xana and Ethan go into her bedroom, and then Kaylee and Maddie go upstairs. And I really believe that Maddie was drunk enough that she would have gone straight to her bed and just been out of it, just totally passed out. And maybe it was Kaylee calling and said, I wonder if he's ignoring me. It's my phone. I wonder if I called on Madison's phone, if Jack would answer. And maybe that's how she came to make these phone calls. But I think it's pretty clear Madison was really intoxicated. Hey, Gianna Marie. Let's see. I'm going through old questions, y'all, so forgive me if I can see Xana calling for food after partying all night. Yeah, we used to go, not that I ever partied. We used to go, we'd all go around town and whatnot. When I was in college, we go around and whatnot. And then at the end of the night, we would go to this hamburger joint, and it was called Griff's. And they made like the greasiest, but it was real hamburger meat. Oh my God, you would just die. It was like the best hamburger in the whole wide world. And really, if you're sober, you can't eat them. They're so awful. But yes, Griff's Greasy Burger. That was the name of the game after going out partying. Yeah. The case is crazy, Gianna Marie. When you go through, I think this information with Dylan is not dependable. I feel like the white car is a red herring. And I think we can only go with what we actually have some verification of, which was 417, 420, 404, and then the phone calls. Yeah, this is going to be one of those trials. You're going to want to make sure that you've saved up vacation time. I believe he was lying in wait. He could have climbed the ladder into Xana's window. Absolutely, Alicia. Absolutely. I agree with you. Yep. Jetta. Hold on. Let's see what Jetta said. Hey, True Crime Curator. Welcome. I'm glad to see you. Jetta says he didn't know Dylan and Beth were there, so he showered before he left. Dylan woke up at 4 and saw him leaving. There you go, Jetta. Absolutely. I am convinced that they found blood in the drains of the house. I believe that. I know, Diane. I'm looking at my vacation schedule. I'm going, man, I have got to be off. The other Latitude is talking about BK's apartment and vacuuming and all that. That brings up a really good point, Latitude. 6 weeks this man had to clean. 6 weeks. And we know that they have eyewitnesses of him cleaning the inside of the car with bleach. People, we don't clean the insides of anything with bleach because it discolors. It takes the color out of what you're cleaning. We used a lot of bleach during COVID, and that's how we learned, no, you don't want to try to bleach the seats in your car because they won't be the right color. They'll be splotchy, or the carpet. So anyone that is willing to go in with bleach to clean the inside of their car, these are people that don't mind that they are going to deface their car and lower its value. There's another reason for wanting to do that. And maybe it's COVID, or maybe you're trying to destroy DNA. I think they're all gone already. And he used their phone, and then he showered and waited for food. He got the food from outside, and then Dylan woke up and saw him leaving. I can see 2 besties doing this. If he doesn't answer for Kaylee, then maybe in their minds he would pick up for Maddie. Exactly. So perhaps, yes, pickups. So maybe the second person was Brett. And that was part of the drive around home. Let's take the long way home. He's not a genius, Marie. I absolutely agree with you. Can't hear the lawn. Oh, good. I'm glad you can't hear the lawn people. It makes me so mad when they come, because it's always like when I'm trying to work on a video. He was not driving around to be seen. He was looking at the house. It's not abnormal in a college town to see cars in and out of areas, even speeding. His car was also tracked by Kopaka's house. We're expecting BK to do sensible things because he was educated, but this was a crime of passion and probably rage, and many mistakes were made. I'm not sure it was a crime of passion nor rage. I think he is a narcissist who was wanting to be famous. I think this was all about him proving that he's smarter than everybody else. I believe that in my heart. I think that was part of his psychopathic drive, was to prove that he could do all of this and not, get caught. Just popping in to say hello. Hello, Natalie Elizabeth. I'm listening while doing yard work. I'm loving to hear more of your thoughts on this. This case has me change my mind daily. Natalie, me too. That's one of the reasons that I really, really tried to stay focused on Bryan Kohberger is innocent. Analyze the information from the view that he's innocent. And to see, I did the same thing in the Chris Watts case. Yeah, absolutely. So Jet Set is that's yeah, I like that comment. So Jet Set says, I think he acted alone. We know because of the Bundy cave that someone can in a residence and do great harm in a very short period of time, even while others are nearby. Absolutely. And he did the whole, oh, has anybody else been arrested? So he definitely was studying, serial killers. Einan Harsh also lied in his interview that he saw in the news prior to the police knocking that early afternoon. Oh, I had already read that one. Hey, Kathy R. It's okay to be late. Caldonia says he did it. Was the DoorDash girl the one girl who lives up the street from the house? I don't know. Oh, yeah. Big Up says, who's the girl that's in trouble all the time that was arrested with the drug charges? I know I can see her. I can't remember her name because I think it's a nothing burger. I mean, I think she's a horrible person, but I'm not sure she's related to this. Thank you, Parma Picker. I appreciate that. Parma Picker said, love your channel and the different points of views on cases. Thank you. I really try, Parma Picker. I really try to look at like being different people or different views of the case because it changes the way that you kind of interpret the evidence. And in this case, I'm going to say it again, I'm upset because we don't really have very much because we got the stupid gag order. And Judge, or like I like to call him affectionately, Judge Jerry, you can control what they talk about. At least let them give us factual information to control all the wild speculation. And look, I'm the original wild speculation girl, but I recognize that if you don't have that counterbalance and have some official that's able to say, that's not true. We never saw that. That's not true. No one ever said that. No, nobody ever came from this. You need that. You need a credible official to help slow down some of the crazy, wild stories that take off, around these cases. Emma Bailey, that's it. Emma Bailey is the girl that got arrested, the drug thing, and yeah. Jet Set, I think it's BK. I believe that it's him, that they got their guy. Absolutely, Marie. 6 weeks before he gets arrested. He's got a history of OCD and he's a criminology student. Yeah. Easy to clean up after himself. No question. Yep. Think about this. He even had enough time that if he was inclined to, I'm not saying that he did, but I'm just giving you like a frame of reference for that 6 week period of time. if he had been inclined, he could have had the carpet replaced in the apartment. He could have called the carpet place, gotten approval from the apartments, and said, you know, I've got this terrible stain. I caused it. I want to pay for having it fixed, and then pay to have them come in and put new carpet, same color, everything. 6 weeks is a long time to clean and make things nice. I don't know if she's the DoorDash person. Big ups. I don't know. I think that story is it is salacious. It's a story to attract people's attention. Oh, I probably 3 or 4 times detailed, even cleaning the undercarriage and all right, I think I covered. All right, I think I got it all. All right. So, Boho Peggy, thank you. Boho meaning below Houston Street, right? Love me some wild speculation. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Very, very kind. We know so little, it's hard to know at this point. I agree. Why was the screen off of Dylan's window? Good question. Very good question. And there is the question of was when he came back around at 9 a.m. or 9:30, something like that, was he dropping someone off? Was someone with him that maybe that's why his car was in the neighborhood? Maybe he was picking someone up at 4 a.m. to come to his apartment for a booty call. I think about that too. All right. Okay, so I think we are at 2 hours. That is way too long. Nobody is going to watch this video from start to finish with it being 2 hours long. But you guys did. Y'all were troopers, and I am very, very, very thankful. Y'all are wonderful. So Kelly O, thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it. And Boho Peggy, you're my spirit animal. Thank you so much. DB, welcome. I have to catch this on replay. I was watching the Border Patrol agent trial. That is heartbreaking. And tell me, is he a cold BASTARD? Ooh, he is cold. He looks so angry. He's a scary guy. Say hello to Barry behind bars. Believe Brent Kopaka may be involved, but hate to speak of the dead like that. Yeah, that's another part of trying to include Brent. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Barry behind bars is doing great. In fact, Barry and Fancy spend most of the time outside now in their little bird aviary, and they're just happy as 2 peas in a pod. Happy as a clam. Happy as a YouTuber with a viral video. That was a good one, wasn't it? All right. Thank you, Kelly. Oh, I appreciate your help so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, everybody. I hope that my beautiful new white microphone has fixed our audio problems. If it has fixed our audio problems, put a 1. And let me see if everybody's happy with the audio, with the new microphone and computer and everything. Thank you, Kelly. Hey, Hybrid. Hybrid's so funny. Hybrid said, yes, much better audio. Parma says yes. Thank you, Parma Picker. DB, happy 4th of July, everyone. Hope you all have a fabulous weekend. We should sing. What God, no, I know what song I want to sing. I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, a Yankee Doodle do or die, a real life nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart. She's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle went to London just to ride the pony. I am a Yankee Doodle boy. All right. You know what I think? I think that's how we're going to go out. I'm not going to do my usual goodbye. Y'all have a great evening.